Thank you, Susan. And your opening really highlights the how our book and your mission are in sync. And not to take away from the very few minutes that I have on the pleasantries of how wonderful this institute is and how it actually captures the spirit of the book, I will tell you a little bit about the book and how the two of us, Daniel, who will speak for himself, who is a practitioner of mindfulness and meditation, and I myself as a cancer researcher, how the two worlds came together. Sort of the book is all really around mind body. And my persona has been to always try to understand the biological underpinnings, in my case of cancer. But we learned over the years that there's many ways in which cancer can come about. And one of the most well-studied ways is this interaction between gene and environment. And I introduce the word environment because I use it as a catch-all. Environment here meaning lifestyle. Environment can mean interventions, etc. And so what we found is that not only do you have to understand the biological underpinnings of the genetics, but also you need to also understand the biological underpinnings of these lifestyles or interventions. And one way in which my lab has done that is to give the biological handle, the objective way of measuring the impact of lifestyle or interventions or environment writ large is through the measurement of telomeres. And telomeres, just very briefly, is a way, an objective measure of how healthy your cells are. So we know that as cells get older, the telomeres get shorter and they die off, which in a normal way is a normal process. But what we're interested in is early onset or accelerated shortening of the telomeres to bring on early onset of disease. And so how does this relate to the book? It relates to the book because over time, we were aware that we could measure life experiences, good and bad, through this measurement of telomeres. So essentially, life experiences shape your telomeres. And so what I noticed in working with all the collaborators that I have, and I will always say intellectually promiscuous. I'm a real, hey, Immaculata, we have this crazy idea. Would you like to? And I'm like, oh, I like that. And so that got me involved with people, collaborators, brilliant people who study these prosocial behaviors, but from a social science aspect. And so I was brought in to understand what can you help us help others show that these exposures or these lifestyles, we know good or bad, they have a health outcome, but we need to understand the mechanism in between because, everybody likes evidence. And so I said, sure, we can try that. And what do I mean we tried that? So we showed in my laboratory at the molecular level, at the DNA level, that certain prosocial behaviors, such as optimism, such as forgiveness, such as gratitude, can actually impact the DNA. And DNA, for the most part, is immutable, unchangeable. But the DNA that's in your telomeres, which we call the epigenome, is modifiable. And in the same way that you can hurt your DNA, you can also help your DNA. And so by adhering or practicing these prosocial behaviors like optimism, forgiveness, and kindness, in the title was a catch-all phrase, word that I wanted to use to capture all of these prosocial behaviors. And so what Daniel and I, when we're on the circuit, we speak of, for example, forgiveness. If you don't want to do it for moral reasons, do it because it really impacts your health. And we noticed, or in the multitude of papers that everyone can look up on PubMed, you'll see that, again, for prosocial behaviors, and it's not just my lab, and this is the true acknowledgement or affirmation of scientists that there's much replication out there to show that there are ways in which lifestyles can impact your DNA both in a positive or in a negative way. And so I am absolutely stunned and shocked at how well received this book has been. Not so much the book itself, but the concepts that we can, through these prosocial behaviors, impact health span so that we don't need to be sick so early, right? No one is here, at least I am not trying to promote life until with infinite life. What I'm trying to promote is a healthy lifespan. The years that one spends are healthy, as you said, flourishing, thriving. And again, it was a work, it's one of the greatest professional joys I've had. And because the whole point of writing this book, and I have to thank Daniel very much for encouraging me, because I'm a science, an academic, and I write research papers that are peer reviewed, and I write chapters and textbooks. But what this showed me is that all my friends, we know a lot of this stuff, but we need to make it accessible to everyone. We need to democratize the information so that everyone has access to understanding how, you can learn optimism. You can learn to do a lot of the prosocial behaviors. You can learn to forgive, because when you forgive, we all know you're letting go of the grudge. And there is a mechanism. The science is, most of it is mediated through the stress pathway. And the side effects of the stress pathway are inflammation. And we know that inflammation targets telomeres. So there is a biological, so you have an exposure, you have an outcome, and now we're sort of putting together the black box, the mechanism, because it's very rewarding to many people to understand that there is science behind these sorts of behaviors, these prosocial behaviors. And what's giving me great pleasure is that many scientists, many social scientists, philosophers, many people are working towards this end. And there's so much information out there. And I'm not sure if I've gone over my time, because when I start talking, I forget.